Thank you for coming. Thank you, dear esteemed speakers. We are here today to discuss value creation in a digital era. I think we need to talk about a lot of things. So, because we are 5 of us, we need to be precise on time. So, I will make a quick intro. We're having the Chief Information Operating Officer of Alpha Bank, Mr. Stefanos Mytilineos. We have Yanna Andronopoulou, who is a Director on Enterprise Microsoft in Cyprus, Greece, and Malta. We have Mr. Kassimiotis from Hewlett Packard, who is Managing Director in Greece and Cyprus. We have from France Mr. Leclercq, who is Senior Vice President of Oracle Applications and Strategy. And we have also George Gazepis, the Chairman of COGNITY SA. So I will start from Stefanos. So Stefanos, we see that typically this value creation concept is used as a term in financial world and valuation. So you, as a CEO of a large Greek bank, how do you believe that technology, digital applications, and analytics can add value to this kind of concept of value creation?
Thank you. Have digital technologies changed the way value is created? I'm going to argue that it hasn't. And this might seem a controversial view. Many of you might tell me, come on, Stefano, you're the CEO of a bank. You should know that AI and analytics have a potentially disruptive effect on businesses. And I will argue that, yes, you're right. And indeed, digital technologies challenge the assumptions behind established business models. They challenge the notion that, for example, we need in the news business to collect all the news during the day, bundle them up, edit them, print them overnight, and publish the news on the following morning. It challenges the notion that we should go to watch a movie to some place and pay a ticket. However, some things remain unchanged. Even if you watch a movie in Netflix, what matters, what creates the value, is the quality of the content you're watching. We can talk about how the global, readily available audience that Netflix has enables it to fund good movies. Yes, this has been enabled by streaming technologies and makes it easier. We can talk about how analytics provide real-time feedback for content creators and how they actually give suggestions to viewers on what to watch next. We can also arguably say that with Twitter, news comes to us faster than ever. But at the same time, I think we can agree that the importance of good news editing, fact-checking, and news analysis is perhaps more important today than it has ever been. And this is my point for today. I mentioned 2 examples of industries that have been heavily disrupted, yet they have retained the essence of their core value proposition in the center. So please keep that thought.
So Yanna, if I pass it on to you, how do you see the big data creating value in this kind of digital era? And do you believe there are cases where the use of data can diminish instead of enhancing value?
Thank you, George. What's one of the main differences in our world today versus the past? We are living in the era of data democratization. Actually, thanks to public cloud, today every company and government can have access to a broad range of data, process those, analyze those, and take informed decisions. For example, a student in Crete or a startup in Thessaloniki can today have access at the same data and AI technology as a company in US. George, this is a major shift because in the past, only large companies could afford to have the infrastructure needed for large-scale analytics. And as government and companies are gradually becoming more data-driven, they are able to leverage insights and create value for their entire ecosystems. Let me give you an example of what's happening in the retail. Retailers today are for the first time ever able to offer truly personalized experiences across all channels, increasing customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, and their revenues. When I do shop in a digital mall and I'm buying a dress, I'm getting excellent recommendations about matching accessories. This is great for me as a shopper and a challenge for my bank account, Stephanie. So, manufacturers, actually, they are leveraging today big data and AI for quality prediction, and we have such practices here in Greece for cement and aluminum companies. And they are also leveraging big data for preventive maintenance, saving a lot of their operation costs. Recently, one large company announced how they are loading their products on the ships at the port, reducing the error rate during, let's say, this process almost to zero, bringing massive efficiencies in their logistics chain. So also we all witnessed during the pandemic how government leveraged big data in order to predict the COVID cases and better prepare the health system. And of course, there are challenges. So actually, we all remember the Cambridge Analytica case, actually. And I will go back to what Stefanos said. Big data is an enabler, and it's up to us how we use it and how we create value out of it. And as President of Microsoft said, technology can be a tool or can be a weapon.
Thank you. And you, Mr. Kassimiotis, if the data is a new currency, you can call it, and the digital currency, right? How you can reassure that we can avoid the divide of the world at the social level and the business level?
Thanks, George, and especially after Stefanos' first controversial positioning, I feel I have to defend a little bit more technology, and after Yanna's first effort. So I would start by first validating the assumption. Indeed, data seems to be the new currency, or the lifeblood, or the life force. And we can bring in our attention, let's say, several examples of this by just thinking different roles of our social and professional life. So we can think about, let's say, a spectator in a stadium, living the experience during the game. We can think about, let's say, a guest in a museum, trying to augment the experience within the place. We can think, of course, of larger scale examples like, let's say, the fight against the world hunger. We can think about how fast we created and introduced all these new medicines, very relevant during the pandemic. So we can think about, let's say, this kind of examples. And of course, my favorite one, you know this already, how you can win in a highly competitive landscape like what someone could think about, let's say, a Formula One racing team that has, by using data during the game, to provide, let's say, analytics and services that help them build strategies. So after validating the assumption, I would say that indeed, and especially during the last 2 years, the ones that had already started investing in digital transformation showed, let's say, double performance versus previous years. There are some surveys, at least I'm aware, of 2 of them, one from KPMG, another one from McKinsey, which shows that 67% of the ASTA CEOs are afraid that they are falling behind and that they cannot follow. So the question is what we do in order to shrink the divide and shrink the gap. There are some certain, let's say, areas of interest that everybody should take into consideration. And I will just mention, because we don't have the time to analyze further, I would start by having a way to be where data is born. So at the edge, in whatever, let's say, social or professional activity. Then you have to utilize technologies like cloud. Cloud is something that has to be part of the strategy. But the most important, we have to shift from an infrastructure, let's say, driven approach in which we used to build IT systems in the past to a data-first approach, because the real essence and the real value of technology is how you can and what kind of value you can extract from data, so that by using advanced, for example, AI algorithms, you can take decisions faster and smarter. And because all this is, to some extent, complicated, you have to find a way to convert technology into a kind of utility. Utility means that you have the ability to take the data from the edge where is born to the data center, to the cloud, whatever cloud, multi-cloud strategies is what, at least as a company, we propose, and be in a position to extract the real value of data. Meaningful content on which you can take decisions. And I believe by converting this into a utility, you can democratize the access to this utility. Everybody has, let's say, power.
Thank you. So, Mr. Gazepis, digital transformation journey that we need to embark on this for the societies and as a government as well, right? What do we need to do to be relevant to the citizens, and to the consumers and corporate clients?
First of all, what I want to say is, of course, I want to thank everybody, and especially the forum here that gave us the opportunity to analyze these topics. It's amazing that for the first time, everybody agrees in where the country should be and should go. We had a very good start with the Ministry of Digitalizations. They did a great work, and especially during the pandemic, they gave us, as citizens and as professionals, a new view of the country. Up till now, we didn't use the technology that much into interacting with the government. It was very limited, our interaction with the government. We didn't use it that much for entertainment. We didn't use it in our education, in our daily education, into our socializing and to entertaining ourselves. During the past 2 years, we saw a huge acceleration into this area, and it changed the mindset of the people, it changed the expectations of the people from the government and the private companies. I think we took advantage of this pandemic, and one of the side results, and very good results, that came out for this country was the fact that everybody is ready to adopt them. Nobody believes that we should stop this. Nobody believes anymore that what we are doing is not necessary, or we're doing it wrong, or they put hurdles in front of it. So there are two important things here that come into place that we have to do to make sure that we succeed. Everybody in the discussions that I heard mentioned it, but I want to just summarize it. The first one was that we need to change the bureaucracy of the state. We need to change the way we implement systems. We don't have to implement systems and processes for the next 50 years anymore. The lifespan of those are very short. So we need to go with quick wins, very fast and accelerated processes to bring in results. We have to do that. We have to come up with new ways of implementing system and thinking about how we implement the processes. But bureaucracy is something that needs to be eliminated, both from organizations, especially big organizations, and the government. How do we do that? I think we have to open our mind up and allow the systems to interoperate with each other, all systems, between private systems and public systems, to access the data, as all the previous speakers said, to allow access to information, to allow access to processes, so we can implement end-to-end systems, end-to-end use cases. This is the most important. It has to be also, right now we're doing it very well with transforming some companies and some organizations, but we need to do that also between organizations, whether they are in the private sector or whether they're in the public sector. We as a company, COGNITY, have worked on these issues, both for modernizing private organizations internally and building the digital infrastructure to be able to face the new customers, the new services they have to offer, the new products. And keeping in mind always that we're going to succeed only if we make the life of the citizen easier and more efficient. That is how I see, the new digitalization being implemented. And I'm very thankful, and all of us should be thankful that we had the government and the ministry that were ready, to challenge and adopt itself within all these different, circumstances that we went through with pandemic, with problems now in Europe, with Ukraine and everything. And I hope we keep working on that to become more efficient and better.
Thank you. Mr. Leclercq, we have seen during COVID period, the last 2 years, lots of corporates, clients, banks, discussing about digital transformation and accelerating those efforts, right? What is your view, wearing Oracle's hat, of what would be like, from now on in a post-COVID era, this kind of narrative of digital transformation, and where you as a company see, trends emerging?
So thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in Delphi. I'll try to take a business angle. I think what I've seen from an application side is disruption after disruption. We know, and we will not repeat, the post-COVID and re-COVID and pre-post-COVID and now inflation and Ukraine, etc. What I've seen is that customer demand in terms of quality of service, in terms of quality of answers, quality to receive a good at the right time is as high as before and changed quite rapidly. We have a big element, a big disruption that has been done in supply chain. And many companies today, if I'm just thinking about Tesla versus other car manufacturer, are taking big advantage of their quality of the supply chain. So big disruption of supply chain everywhere. Employees, extremely difficult. The great resignation, employee engagement, return the employees back to work. I think that this is certainly a big issue. And what I think for me has changed with this digital world is the fact that these elements are connected together and have a big impact on the finance and the operations. If you want to provide a good customer service, you need to have a good supply chain. If you want to have a good supply chain, of course, you need the tools, the supply chain processes, etc., but you need also the people behind. And the people behind are also the ones providing the best level of service. I was discussing also before with Stefanos about the difficulty for many companies to keep their experts, their technical experts, in each of the departments, because all young people, they want as soon as that their expertise to reuse that expertise in many other companies. So all of those things are connected together. And so digital, of course, now it's there always, remote for customers, remote for employees, remote for suppliers, remote for partners. It is there, of course, on the supply chain where you need absolutely to have resiliency, agility, capacity to do predictive system. It is there for the employee, for me, the employee engagement, the well-being of our workforce, capacity to have sustainability, diversity. I have a young kid, I have 4 kids, one is looking for a job. Of course, the salary means something, but it's interesting about the brand, the values of the company, potentially much more important than just how much money you would get at the end of the month. So the sustainability, diversity element is something which is quite big there. So this is where we see really on the market the fact that you have to connect this element, and so that's why I think it is, of course, the cloud. It is a good enterprise application with predefined framework, and so you can be really very agile and very quick. It's about the use of the data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, but applied to the context of the application. It's real-time insight, so getting the information. It's prediction, predictive model, planning model, specifically what would be the impact of inflation, for example, in different scenarios. So all these things are coming together. And in my view, this is where you have to, what we call redefine best. So you may have the good processes before, but potentially this is the time to redefine if your business process still is the right one, the good one, but also in the context of the rest of the application. That's why the interoperability, integration, extensibility is also extremely important.
Thank you. So, Stefanos, back to you. We have seen the last decade that technology companies and unicorns have emerged and pretty much outgrown the traditional players, right, in terms of value and in terms of market value as well. And so, do you believe that technology can disrupt value for the corporates and banks? What are the lessons learned for the big banks? And how do you believe that those changes influence and reshape the business models going forward?
Can it disrupt? Oh yeah, absolutely. Big tech and unicorns have the potential to disrupt, especially banks. You see financial services companies and more particularly retail banks have been relying on a model, on a business model where some of the services we provide, especially some that are very expensive to provide, like access to a branch network, nationwide ATM network, call center where people answer the phone, they're provided for free. And this has been working so far because we charge for other services like taking a loan or doing an FX transfer. And we have been making enough margin to cover the cost of the other services. But this is where disruptors attack us. They take the service lines that we charge for and they will offer them either for free because they may have a strategy that relies very aggressively on data monetization, or they might offer them cheaper because they don't have to cover the cost of branches or ATMs or call centers. Clearly, this is a problem for banks because we either need to unbundle our pricing and start charging in some way for the services that we used to offer for free, or bundle it up in a very different way, or perhaps pursue ourselves aggressive data monetization. This is dangerous. This is dangerous for us. And I'm saying it not because I'm thinking of data monetization as using analytics to provide a service, a better service to customers, and therefore be able to charge more for it, either directly or indirectly. That's not a problem. But if by data monetization we mean selling sensitive financial data to advertisers or using it as a platform to build a business that's very different from financial services, then it can be dangerous because fundamentally it can be a breach of trust, the trust that we share with our customers. And trust for banks is like news analysis is for The Economist or TV shows are for Netflix. Trust is our essence that defines our core value proposition. And in defense of disruption, my view is that we need to double up on this core value proposition. And instead of playing the game of the disruptors in their own terms. And I think that this logic applies in many industries, not just in banks, not just in news or in content movie creations. I think that all businesses should be very clear about what their core value proposition is. And in most cases, AI or big data or blockchain or Internet of Things or all the other things that can help with the value, but in most cases they are not this core value proposition.
I'll come back to this because it's my favorite topic. So
Please,
Yanna, Microsoft the last year and last years has announced large investments in the country. So how Microsoft can innovate in a Greek ecosystem and in Greek territory, and which are the prerequisites that you need as a company, as a big company, to have in place in order to succeed in this kind of efforts?
Microsoft has a presence in the country since the last 30 years, and we practically already are empowering every company and almost every home with our platforms. As you said, we recently, about 1.5 years ago, we announced our GR for Growth initiative that includes the investment for a hyperscale data center region in Greece. Actually, our general manager yesterday here in Delphi Forum announced the 3 locations of the data centers. As part of this initiative, we are investing in the development of an ecosystem of innovation, working very closely with academia, startups, the private and the public sector, in order to accelerate the country's transformation. On top of the examples that I mentioned before, we recently also signed 2 MOUs, one with PPC and one with Piraeus Bank, in order to accelerate their digital transformation. There are some prerequisites, though, that need to be satisfied in order for us as a country to be able to capture those opportunities and really innovate. And I would like to emphasize the need for digital skilling. Actually, the pace of change is very, very fast, and it's widening the gap between those who have the required skills and those who don't. Therefore, it's of a very strategic importance to invest in the skilling of the broader population. And we as Microsoft, we are currently running a digital skilling initiative for 100,000 Greeks. Another very important factor has to do with the creation of an ecosystem, including policymakers, including government, private sector, and academia, that will focus on supporting innovation and ultimately create a great future for all.
Thank you. So, Mr. Kassimiotis, we have very little time. We need really to compress the answer. HP is contributing to this national effort, right, to assist critical sectors of the Greek economy to advance in order to make this quantum jump, technologically speaking, ahead of other advanced countries and economies. 2 words as how HP is contributing to this effort.
In such limited time, I should revert, let's say, my initial positioning, so I will mention just this. HPE is the company that is bringing the cloud technology to the far edge in a project called Spaceborne, bringing, let's say, technology to the exploration of Mars in 2023. So, if we have this right as a technology vendor, a global technology vendor, why to not think how I can help my country reach the sky? And we have lots of technology, but the most important thing is that we are a global company that can bring the experience, and also we have the DNA and the purpose statement that is quite strong and very relevant. So we have specialization in several areas that are quite relevant these days, like in the energy sector, in the exploration of, let's say, natural gas, through high-performance computing technologies. We can help the industry of tourism and hospitality through advanced, let's say, experience creation, logistics, and Greece is, let's say, could be, let's say, the smart hub of the region, and lots of such many that also my colleagues would like to mention as well.
So if I can take it to Leclercq, because Mr. Leclercq, what Oracle is doing on this front, can you give us a couple of pragmatic, cases?
Yes, I'll try to be quick. So we have thousands of customers, but I thought that I would take some specific ones, which for me are key for the creating value. One is about government and citizen. I was at the Tony Blair session this morning. We have a strong partnership with the Tony Blair Institute to provide the health system in many countries, and specifically Africa. And we have, I would say, launched a system in Senegal in the cloud where we can record, track, vaccine for the patient. And for us, this is extremely important. That's the type of technology could provide minimal cost, minimal infrastructure, and here you go, you have a capacity to have a system. The other, and it is my understanding also that my health, I'm sure as a Greek citizen, potentially you have this application, this is all powered by Oracle. So that's another example of the value that we can provide directly to the citizen, which I think is important for government because they want to know where the tax is going in terms of way to provide value. The other spectrum is to put the level of dopamine high. You may have seen Oracle on some F1 car, like Red Bull. So you mentioned F1. We do that in two ways. Was internally to accelerate the number of simulation and test, evaluation and prediction that we could have. But more importantly, if you are a Red Bull fan, you can access to an application which is the Red Bull Racing Paddock, which is just a marketing applications to connect the fans together with the brand. And you know how much Red Bull is, the brand is very important. And we multiply by 9 the number of fans that now are interacting with the platform, very personalized, they receive rewards. So that's on the other side of the spectrum, also the type of technology and how could get that technology, I would say, connected the customer and customer also with the brand.
And I will close with Mr. Gazepis because we are like 2 minutes late. What are the next steps that the stakeholders need to take to reassure that we enhance value?
I think the first thing that the stakeholders should do is what we mentioned before. Is
just your microphone, please.
Reduce the bureaucracy.
Close to your microphone, please.
Can you hear me now?
Not really.
Not really. Anyway, I will speak louder. I think that bureaucracy is the thing that is putting the country to get behind and the companies behind. We have to change that. And the second most important thing of all is to put processes in place to keep the human capital of the Greek young people in the country. We cannot afford to lose people that work in our industry to go to other places, to other countries. It's the most important thing for us. These are the two issues. I don't think it's a commercial issue. I don't think it's anything else but those two, bureaucracy and keeping the human capital in the country. The hardest thing we can do is overcome bureaucracy. That's one thing as a company. And the second thing is find the right people with the right attitude, the right knowledge, and the willing to do things.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gazepis. Thank you all. I think we ran over time. Thank you all for your participation.